I've just run out of lanterns in the middle of the forest. It makes you feel like you're at the mercy of others because it's rustling to the right and left of you. And now I'm in the exact spot where the clearing used to be. And this is where a very scary thing happened to my brother a long time ago. Mother had sent George up into the forest. I was still too small to go with him. Back then, the charcoal burners who made the coal for the glassworks lived up in the forest. Go up and get a basket full of coal from them, my mother said to George. Take some bacon with you, and they'll give you some coals, but come back before it gets dark. My brother was afraid to go up to the charcoal burners on his own, but he didn't let on. The charcoal burners were notorious. Everyone wondered what kind of people they were who spent their whole lives up there in solitude, alone in the forest. People wondered whether everything was always done properly there. So George wanted to get things over with as quickly as possible, took a basket and a piece of bacon, and set off. It was a long time before he arrived at the hut. He had only found it at all because he had noticed the smoke from the charcoal piles at some point. When he arrived, the sun was already setting. One of the men was standing there all alone. And because George didn't want to waste any more time, he went and told him what he wanted. He showed him the bacon and asked if he could fill the basket with coal for it. The other man didn't say a word, just looked straight at him with deep black eyes, as black as the coal themselves, and quite sinister. George often told me afterwards how long those eyes haunted him. The charcoal burner just nodded and pointed to a pile of coal so that my brother could take some for himself. George didn't wait a moment, but went to the pile and filled his basket. Then he said goodbye and left again as quickly as possible. The man just stared at him the whole time. He hadn't moved and hadn't said a word. Only his coal-black eyes had followed George wherever he went, until he had disappeared into the forest again. My brother could still feel them on his back, the eyes, felt the gaze that followed him. He then simply walked downhill, hoping that he would reach the village again. It was getting dark and he turned on his lantern. But even when he had long since left the charcoal burner's hut behind him, he couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being followed, just like I feel right now. But it got so bad for George that he didn't dare look around because he was afraid he might really find something behind him. Something that was chasing him or threatening him. He went on like this for a while, but then suddenly the light from the lantern went out. And because he had just used up his last match, just like me, he stood there helplessly in the dark. He kept hearing noises in the undergrowth to his right and left. It rustled and cracked, as if someone was stepping on leaves and branches all around him. Then he came to where I am standing now. It's all overgrown now, but back then, almost 40 years ago, this was still a clearing. It is said that a battle once took place here, a skirmish in medieval times. And then he suddenly stood there, black and with shining eyes. George could see its outline very clearly in the moonlight. He looked like a huge dog, just like one of the large poodles used by the higher societies for hunting. They appear where many people have died at once, our grandfather had often told us. George was firmly convicted that this would be the end of him. Very slowly, he took a few steps back. Then he turned around and wanted to run away. But just as he took the first step, he almost collided with a charcoal burner who was suddenly standing right behind him. The lone charcoal burner he had met up at the hut. He had followed him and had probably not left him alone the whole time. The man still looked at him wordlessly with his black eyes, and George wondered who he was better off with now, the black dog or the scary guy. Then the charcoal burner opened his mouth, and as soon as he parted his lips a little, a glow of light appeared between them. A fire erupted, a fire that burned inside the man. When the guy opened his mouth fully, a jet of flame burst into the air. It was such a pillar of flame that it lit up the whole forest around them. I remember people in the village talking the next day about what could have lit up the forest so brightly that night. But George told the story only to me, because he knew that nobody else would believe him. In any case, the ghostly dog was driven away by this fire, because when the flames went back into the charcoal burner's mouth, it was gone. George looked at the fiery man in amazement. He couldn't think of anything to say to him, so he just said that unfortunately he didn't have any more bacon to thank him for. Then the man spoke to him for the first time. He didn't make a face, and it still shone out of his mouth as he said, "Just say, God repay you." George still had the horror in all his limbs. It took a few moments until he was able to reply, "God repay you." As if by magic, his lantern began to shine again. The man took a few steps back and then simply disappeared. He didn't disappear into the darkness. He disappeared from this world, for he had obviously been a poor soul who had been redeemed by George's blessing. Now I could use such a fiery man, but none have been seen here anymore. The clearing has also been overgrown for a long time, and the charcoal burners have long since moved on. I just wonder what happened to the black dog, because I have the feeling that I'm really not alone here.